Did we just witness the end of Kamala Harris's dreams for the White House, at least in 2024? That Bret Baier interview was an absolute meltdown, and we're here for it, and you're going to see all of it coming up in just a second. Also, PolyMarket, what's going on that website, and will it be a better indicator on how this presidential election turns out than the polls? We'll explore that. And also an absolute, complete, and total chaotic segment on CNN, where you had two passionate voices debating about the minority vote, which continues to loom large in this presidential election. You'll see all of it coming up right now. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Thank you for watching our live stream here at noon every day, pretty much. And we're at all of your favorite video streaming platforms, as well as over at the Town Hall sites, townhall.com, hotair.com, redstate.com, pjmedia.com, twitchy.com, and of course, bearingarms.com. Thank you so much for subscribing and watching and putting those alerts on so that you can always see when we're going live. And if you're not a subscriber yet, I don't know what in the hell you people are waiting for. Subscribe. It literally costs you nothing. Do it. Do it. All right. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. Well, we all know that the Kamala Harris for President campaign started out as brat summer, right? I mean, things were flying high. It was all about TikToks and brat summer and feeling the joy and feeling the vibes and all the things that come along with a brat summer. It was fabulous. She didn't have to put any policies on her webpage. She didn't have to do any interviews. She didn't have to do any debates. She didn't have to do any town halls. She didn't have to do anything. Just show up and be Kamala, and it's brat summer. Of course, you look at calendar now, you know that it's no longer summer, and brat summer last night turned into Bret autumn. Bret Baier autumn, to be exact. She finally sat down for a one-on-one interview with a journalist who didn't love her, didn't want to help her, didn't bend over backwards to make her look good and be an adjunct propagandist for the campaign. And by the way, I think Bret Baier did a very good job, but to be honest, I mean, he's a fair guy. He's a nice guy. I've known him. He's a gentleman. I don't mean this as a criticism. I really don't. So I hope no one takes it that way. But none of Bret Baier's questions were gotcha questions. They weren't tough questions. They weren't hard questions. They weren't unexpected questions. Every single question that was asked is something that any competent candidate and professional staff would have been prepared for. But she was not prepared. She was not prepared at all. And it ended up being contentious. It ended up being kind of ugly, actually. And we begin with Bret Baier's explanation of the circumstances surrounding this sit-down. It was scheduled to be taped at 5 o'clock. Bret's show on Fox News Channel goes on at 6. They specifically did not want this to be live, the Kamala Harris campaign. So the only way to make this happen was to record it live in complete beginning to end with no edits at 5 o'clock and then turn it around fast enough. It was going to be a 30-minute interview and get it on the air at 6 o'clock. The Harris campaign knew that those were the time constraints and knew that those were the conditions. And well, they took advantage of that. We'll let Bret Baier explain exactly what happened.
You know, when the kicker in football, they call a timeout right before he's going to kick the field goal. They're icing the kicker. So we were supposed to start at 5 p.m. This was the time they gave us. Originally, we were going to do 25 or 30 minutes. They came in and said, well, maybe 20. So it was already getting whittled down. And then the vice president showed up about 5:15. We were pushing the envelope to be able to turn it around for the top of the 6 o'clock. So that's how it started. And I could tell when we started talking that she was going to be tough to redirect without me trying to interrupt. I did this with President Obama. At one point, I just said, Mr. President, I know you like the filibuster. I just didn't even have the chance to sometimes redirect in those ways. I had a lot of other questions.
Yeah, he had a lot of other questions and they didn't get to it. And she did filibuster and he had to jump in and sort of redirect her. Like the very first question was, by your estimation, how many people have been let into this country illegally during your administration? And she couldn't even answer that question. She immediately, all these questions about border security, and she immediately starts pivoting, talking about the broken immigration system. Just a little pointer for all of you in case you're engaged in a friendly debate with a colleague or a family member or somebody on your Facebook page. And every time you raise border security, they say, yeah, because our immigration system's broken. Can you please remind them that the immigration system is a very separate and distinct issue from border security? You can have a broken immigration system, yet at the same time secure your border. I know they try to make them connected, but they really aren't connected in any way whatsoever. But Democrats do that on purpose. Kamala Harris does that on purpose. Open border types do that on purpose. Every time you start to say, can we at least secure our border? Can we keep people from coming in here illegally? Well, we have a broken system. We need fundamental immigration reform. Okay, maybe we do. But that doesn't mean we can't secure our border. And that's just one example of the mess that this interview turned out to be, at least a mess for Kamala Harris. Let's jump around a little bit. I want to focus on one thing that I don't think the Harris campaign was counting on. And that was Kamala Harris's flashes of anger. We've heard about her temper. We know that she had something like an 80% turnover in her vice president's staff. We know that there are people who worked with her as attorney general who said that she would walk around the office making employees refer to her as General Harris because, she's the attorney general and you better use my proper title. We know that there have been flashes of this temper, but we've never seen it, right? Because it was Brat Summer and it was joy and it was just good vibes. And we're turning the page on all that divisive rhetoric. But then during the interview, the first interview she's ever had where she's actually been challenged with a question and redirected to answer the question instead of just go off with her talking points, we saw the anger. We saw it in spades.
Talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the president of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
Now, I want you to watch her body language. I want you to watch her face, her eyes, her eyebrows, her gestures, her mouth, without actually listening to what she has to say. Do you ever see Donald Trump act this way? I mean, I know they have a lot to say about Donald Trump, but where's the joy? Where's Brat Summer? I mean, this is Kamala Harris. Now, I know that there's a lot of her fans who were thrilled with this. They want her to get angry. They want her to yell. They may be right, but see, there are people who are already predisposed to vote for her. I promise you, as Kamala Harris goes on to Fox News Channel, and one must think strategically that the only reason she did this was because she's trying to appeal to independents or on-the-fence Republicans who don't like Trump, let's say, or are open-minded to try another way. And this is what they get. That's hysterics. That's not a good look. It's certainly not presidential, is it? But that's only the beginning of the anger. It's only the beginning of the yelling that we saw here. And understand something. This is Bret Baier. This is, teddy bear Bret Baier. Hardly the meanest, most partisan person on Fox News Channel. All he was doing was being assertive and trying to track her back to the actual questions that she kept avoiding.
Frankly, exhausted of Bret.
More than 70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But you're
people
the
have
lever of
become,
power.
but listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with.
She was agitated there, but I got to tell you, this one part was so smarmy and so obnoxious. This whole, You and I both know what we're talking about. She's trying to do this like we've got a secret handshake here. She's never met Bret Baier before in her life. But she's trying to appeal to this. I know that you hate Trump. You know what I'm talking about, Bret. Come on. Come on.
Person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking
That's the moment. Actually, I don't. What the hell are you talking about? Bret Baier speaking for all of us at that moment. Seriously, what are you talking about? But that's a perfect example of this, 79% of the American people think we're on the wrong track. Well, yeah, because of Donald Trump. Okay, but you're in power right now. You're in the White House. You've been sending us on this track for 3.5 years. But Donald Trump's been running for office for 10 years. Does anyone buy that? Does anyone buy that the American people in these polls are saying that we're on the wrong track? And by saying we're on the wrong track, it means that Donald Trump is a candidate? That Donald Trump, he's a candidate, so we're on the wrong track. Nobody thinks that. All right, one more of these, little flashes of anger. And again, the inability to actually answer questions and constantly try to bring this interview back to trash Trump, which I guess it's a strategy. But, I mean, at some point, don't you actually have to be for something?
Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
It's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk.
So are they misguided, the
for
50%?
Listen,
Are they stupid? What is
God,
it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within.
Now, I'll let her finish here, but you see again what she did. The question is, if he's so bad and you've been trashing him, then why is it that over half the people are supporting him right now, the way the latest polls are, at the very least half of the people? And why do they think he's better than you at almost every possible policy issue? And then she immediately turns and says, but Trump demeans people, right?
An enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
Why, if he's
anyone remember Joe Biden giving a speech in front of Independence Hall in Philadelphia, bathed in red light that made it look like it was bleeding, as he was standing there screaming about the MAGA fascist Republicans? Remember that? All that language that sounds like he was calling us the enemy within. And this idea of jailing your political opponents. There's over 1,000 Trump supporters who have been jailed by this administration. Some of them under the horrible crime of parading without a permit. Parading without a permit because they walked into the Capitol building when Capitol police officers were literally holding the door open for them. Disrupting an official proceeding because they walked into the Capitol as police officers held the door for them. And then, of course, there's the charges against Donald Trump himself. Also, Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon have both been imprisoned by this administration. So is anyone actually buying this whole idea that Donald Trump is the real existential threat to the Constitution? Because he'll jail his political opponents when they are literally doing that right now. But there was another moment here. Bret Baier says, why are people supporting him if he's that bad? Are they misguided? Are they stupid? Did you catch this?
Who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
it's not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a cakewalk.
So are they misguided, the 50%?
Listen,
are they stupid? What
God,
is it?
I would never say that about the American people.
So Bret Baier says, what's going on with these voters? Are they just stupid? And Kamala Harris says, I would never say that about the American people. Really? Oh, let's go to the videotape.
So are they misguided, the 50%? Are they stupid? What is it?
I would never say that about the American people.
What else do we know about this population, 18 through 24?
They are stupid.
Okay. You know, listen, David Muir isn't the only one who can do a fact check on these people. The difference is ours is accurate. All right. Then the conversation turned, as it often does at moments like this, to Joe Biden. Because Kamala Harris made the mistake of using that word again. That's why the American people want to turn the page. That's why they want to move on. They want to turn the page from Joe Biden. All right.
It's interesting you said turn the page, Madam Vice President. You were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I know.
And so that would be one change in terms of, but also I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump.
Okay, so those are both clips from last week, right? One from The View, and on the very same day, she did Stephen Colbert about 8 hours later, and everyone was really surprised. It's like she sort of, fumbled on The View. That's bad, but she had a second chance, and she still sort of fumbled. Now she's had a week. She's had over a week. It's been 9 days between that, and she's already seen the fallout from that. I can't think of anything different I'd do from Joe Biden. So now, what's her answer with all of her highly paid political consultants and, of course, her own brilliant brain, because she's one of the smartest human beings ever to contemplate running for president, we've been told. So now that she's had time to think about it, what's the big takeaway? What's her new answer to this fundamental question? How are you going to be different than Joe Biden? All right, let's see what the answer is.
So you're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My presidency will not be a continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes into office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago, and the business sector and others.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think if the American people are looking for someone who has not spent the majority of their career in Washington, D.C. and has great contacts in the business sector and within the Republican ranks, maybe there's another choice. Maybe there's another choice on the ballot, if that's exactly what you're looking for. Also, that was a bit of a slam to Joe Biden, right? He's been in D.C. his whole career. I wonder how that's going to fly over at 1600 Pennsylvania. But that's it. So understand exactly what she said there. My presidency will not be the continuation of the Biden presidency, which, of course, I would follow up and say, okay, it's not the continuation of the Biden presidency, but what about the Biden policies? How are your policies different? And that's a very, very interesting distinction. And she specifically made sure that that distinction was left open. My presidency will not be a continuation of the Biden presidency, which is obviously by default definitively true. But will your policies be a continuation of the Biden policies? How are you different? Still hasn't answered that. But Bret Baier tried one more time.
You call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now
He's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not.
By the way, I just want to pause here. I'm sorry. This is, and I know Bret Baier is sort of getting mixed reviews. Most people think Bret Baier did a solid job. I think he did a solid job. This is probably his best moment because he's drawing her in. He's sucking her in. She thinks this is going to be an opportunity to go after Donald Trump, right? He's setting it up with, you've said that he's unstable, that he doesn't have the mental fitness, that he has, some kind of health problems or whatever, which is ironic with Joe Biden, right? This is how he's, and you can see her, she's getting excited to be able to engage in this. She's ready. I mean, she prepared this entire interview. She tried to just use it as a hammer against Donald Trump. And Bret Baier catches her so off guard. I'm not going to interrupt it again, but I want you, when he finally asked her the question that she's not expecting, watch the 3-second pause with her mouth open and her eyes searching for the right answer. It is shocking, in fact, that this question has not been asked of her yet, because it should have been the first question asked of her when she became the presidential nominee. All right, let's get to it. We'll start again.
You call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
after George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out, even people who worked for him in the Oval Office.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. She flounders so much here. And this is why people have primaries. She has no inherent political skills here other than reading a teleprompter very well and making sure that she sort of plays the part. But when she's under the gun and she has to actually shift on the fly and think in real time, well, we see how she performs. And by the way, she might, as President of the United States, be called upon to actually do that in much more serious and stressful scenarios. All right. The interview, as I said, began. It was 23 minutes, I want to say. And the first 10 minutes were all about border security. All about border security and their failures in the realm of illegal immigration. So let's take a look at a couple of those.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration, because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right now,
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's a
an
rough
immigration
estimate of
system
6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish.
You had the
please.
White House and the House and the Senate,
I'm
and they
in the
didn't bring
middle
up
of
that bill.
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things.
Yeah. Then she just goes on to BS and BS and avoid the question. But again, the question had to do with remain in Mexico, and the question had to do with border security and the 90 plus executive actions that they utilized to open the border and create the chaos that we've got. And the question was about ending the Remain in Mexico program, where those seeking amnesty and asylum could stay in a foreign country first instead of being on our side of the border. And she continued to avoid that. Also, by the way, Bret Baier made a very important point, because she keeps saying on day one, we had this bill. That bill, you heard the name of it, the U.S. Immigration Citizenship Act. It had to do with granting citizenship to people who come here illegally. It was an amnesty bill. It was a pathway to citizenship bill. The American people don't want that. 6 Democrats refused to even entertain it. Right? And this is at a time when they had a majority in the House and the Senate. So again, it's all lies and it's all obfuscation, and it's not answering the fundamental question about the border, not immigration, the border.
You said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear. I think we all are.
I just need you to recognize the Democrat pivot here, the Democrat shuffle, the Democrat two-step, whatever you want to call it, because they do it all the time, and it's not even close. It's so transparent, and you need to see it every time because they do it, and so do your liberal friends whenever you raise this issue. The question is a perfect one. You said for years that the border was secured. Now you agree it's a crisis. At what point did you see that it was a crisis? And her response is, we've always had a broken immigration system. That wasn't the question. The question is about border security. I'm sorry if I keep repeating myself, but you need to have this in your DNA. It needs to be so second nature for you. You talk about border security, they talk about immigration. They're not the same thing. Watch her do it.
Said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before.
Yeah. So again, the question here is, and I would, given the chance to follow up, I would say, do you think you can have a broken immigration system and still secure the border? Just curious. Or as long as immigration, and however you define broken immigration system, does that mean that by the way, you know what broken immigration system means? It means that it's hard right now for people in other countries to become legal green card holders, legal residents, and legal citizens. It's actually not that hard. It is a little expensive and it's a little time consuming. So the only solution is to just open the floodgates and let anyone in and break our laws, and we'll treat them as if they did it legally. I don't know. Maybe it's me, but I think you have laws for a reason. I could be wrong. All right. One more immigration question. This one, a very important one, and one that she shouldn't have been surprised to get.
Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Bret,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There is no question about that. And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock, trying to hold it all together,
Madam Vice President.
to ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration.
That's right. And she still never actually answered that question. This all happened because of policy decisions, over 90 executive orders that lifted all of the restrictions. But she is right. This election coming up in 20 days, 19 days is, in fact, if you care about the border and you care about border security, and you care about crime, and you care about vetting people coming into this country, it is a very clear choice about who is serious about fixing that problem, addressing the problem head on, not BSing about it, not deflecting, not obfuscating about it, addressing it for what it really is, and then fixing it. You do have that choice. And in fact, you have the advantage of knowing that one of those candidates actually has been in the job before. And, well, things were very different with regard to border security back during his presidency. All right, a little bit more here. Bret Baier, again, no surprise here. You used to believe this, now you believe this. This used to be your policy, now this is your policy. What's up with that?
So are you still in support of using taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender?
I will follow the law. And it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that he never advocated for that prison policy and no gender transition surgeries.
You know what? You got to take responsible for what happened in your administration.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with that smug, smarmy little look on her face, we'll just pause it right there. She's absolutely right. You do need to take responsibility for what happens in your administration. It may have been the policy of the Federal Prison Bureau that these transgender procedures were legal or available, but it didn't happen during the Trump administration. He said he will end it, and she actually advocated for it. There are multiple interviews of her actually bragging about the fact that she made it happen in the state of California. And of course, it continues this whole thing. I'll follow the law. I'll just follow the law. So we're electing a president who's just going to go up there and keep the status quo and do whatever. First of all, she's not following the law when it comes to the border right now. She's not enforcing our current law when it comes to that. But her only answer is, I'll follow the law. How about some leadership, number one? Is it the right thing to do? And if it's currently the law, should it be changed? Okay. But number two, they're literally trying to rewrite the law right now without the benefit of Congress. They have rewritten Title IX. They have rewritten Title IX. It's being stopped by attorneys general, thank God, who are suing this administration, and it's frozen right now. But this administration just rewrote the Title IX code without one vote from Congress, redefining woman as men who identify as women. They have just rewrote that code, Title IX. They've rewritten the law so that men can participate in women's sports at the collegiate and high school level and can access spaces that are supposed to be private for women in those spaces. So don't buy any of it when she says, I will follow the law, because her record right now with Joe Biden is that they go in and rewrite the law. Title IX was a one-page document when it was passed by Congress in 1972. It's now hundreds of pages because, you have to rewrite a law in a pretty significant way to change the meaning of woman to be whatever. More on this, by the way, as she continued to be, her flip-flops continue to be a subject of this conversation.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
if that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, who governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
That was a brilliant follow-up by Bret Baier, and you can tell by that look on her face that she's not happy that she was asked that question. This whole, I'll follow the law, follow the law. But I love this, by the way. You believed this, and now you're doing this, or you're claiming this. And she says, well, that was 5 years ago. You know, you can't expect me to believe what I believed 5 years ago. But this whole I'll follow the law, I already explained how that's just a complete and total bullshit answer. But it's a perfect follow. It's like, okay, all those things that you now claim you don't believe, you just picked a running mate who instituted all of those things in his state. So what is it you believe? And well, you can see by the look on her face. One other quickie here on foreign policy, because sadly, there hasn't been enough discussion. There was only one question on foreign policy, but I think that it's instructive. Again, look at the look on her face. This is right at the end, as the staffers are saying, cut it off, we're done, we're done, we're done. Everyone who thinks that Kamala Harris did a great interview, look at that face right there, and you tell me. But asked in an interview on 60 Minutes, asked about what the biggest threat was, she said, Iran. I want you to hear this follow-up here, because Bret Baier is very, it's like, if Iran is our biggest threat, you know, your administration certainly hasn't treated them that way, considering lifting sanctions and enriching the regime so they can pay for terrorists to come after us and our allies. I want you to listen to her answer here, because if foreign policy matters to you, if you worry about the men and women who are in our military right now serving overseas, if you worry about foreign adversaries who would love to strike us again if we are vulnerable and we have weak leadership, if you worry about terror attacks here at home financed by regimes like Iran, I want you to listen very carefully to how Kamala Harris answers this question, because this is her chance to tell you what kind of strong leader and commander-in-chief she would be. Try to make sense of her answer here about Iran.
A number of experts thought you would say China. The FBI director had said that. But you said Iran. If that's the case, what do you say to critics who look at the actions of your administration and say you're not acting like Iran is the number one threat?
Well, I will tell you most recently, whether it was in April or in October, and then several hours on each occasion, that Iran posed a threat to Israel. I was there, most recently in the Situation Room, in the most recent attack, working with the heads of our military and doing what America must always do to defend and to support Israel in its requirement to defend itself, and to give American support to be able to allow Israel to have the resources to defend itself against attack, including from Iran and Iran's terrorist proxies in the region.
Right.
And that is, and my commitment to that is unyielding and unwavering.
Wow. Like I said, I just wanted you to see that and to listen very carefully to that answer. And if that satisfies you, you know, are you really treating Iran like a threat? Well, all I can tell you is that when Iran did threaten Israel, I was there in the Situation Room working with our military heads to make sure Israel could defend herself. That's her answer. You decide what you need and want in a commander-in-chief. Personally, I don't see that as leadership. I'd like a stronger leader if you really do believe Iran is our biggest threat internationally. All right, one more clip, because there's a lot of memes going on around there already on this interview, but one of them sums it up perfectly in terms of the Kamala Harris strategy in this interview, and I just want to share it with you quickly.
Donald Trump and
Democrats voted.
Donald Trump, 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 and Donald Trump, Donald Trump,
President Biden had a fundraiser debate stage.
Let's go back to
oil
Donald
profits.
Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump.
Yep. That was it. Everything is Donald Trump. He is living rent-free in her head. That's what he's doing. In her mind right now, as she does that, that's what she sees. He is literally dancing around on her cerebellum or whatever's left of it. And she can't stand it. Clearly, from yesterday's interview, the strategy here for the Kamala Harris campaign in the final 20 days is to make this entire election about people who want to vote for Donald Trump or people who want to vote against Donald Trump. Has nothing to do with her, has nothing to do with her running mate, has nothing to do with her party, and it has nothing to do with policies, God knows. This entire election is, are you voting for Donald Trump or are you voting against Donald Trump? That strategy might work. It might. But I will be surprised if it does. There is a lot at stake in this upcoming election. Regardless of who's sitting in the White House, though, the fuse on the economy has kind of already been lit. See, 4 years of a conservative presidency is not going to be enough to turn the tide on our $35 trillion national debt. And if the left wins, forget about it. It's like throwing gas on a dumpster fire that's already there, right? You don't have much control over the election's outcome, but you can diversify your savings right now by investing in gold from Birch Gold. For millennia, gold has stood firm in the face of greedy governments, economic upheavals, and global strife, and it can help protect you right now. Birch Gold will help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, and it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. In the past 4 years, the buying power of the US dollar has declined, while the price of gold has increased by 40%. You think that's a coincidence? No, the two often go hand in hand. Text Larry right now to 989898. Get your free info kit on gold. And trust Birch Gold, as I do, to protect your savings. Once again, text Larry to 989898. Do it today.
Hey, Larry, we've got a bunch of super chats coming in, and I want to shout some out from Rumble real quick.
Oh, let's do it. Although I took a peek at one of them. One of them we're not supposed to say. Did you see that?
Yes, I did. I won't show that one.
All right.
But let me just go ahead and shout out this one from Rumble real quick. Arthur Brogdon.
Hey.
Arthur Brogdon. He became a monthly subscriber on Rumble and also gave $50 to say how that interview was a titan of a train wreck over a cliff with a school bus on deck.
That is absolutely right. And say, hey, hi, everyone at Rumble. I'm sorry. I don't know why the Rumble super chats and subscriptions don't come in on our feed here, but great to see it. And thank you, Rumble. We love our team Rumble. You were the OGs, man. And then, oh, man, speaking of an OG, Ricky D. Upchurch. She can't do Rogan because Joe won't agree to the terms. Mega dittos. God bless Rush Limbaugh. Yeah, there's no way Joe Rogan's happening. Not after that. Honestly, I mean, Bret Baier's a gentleman. He's a nice guy, but Joe Rogan isn't. It would be ugly. Yeah, thank you for that, Ricky. I appreciate it. James Provost Hemingway, the beautiful pickup. She is clueless. It's like listening to your stepmother who hates you. Yeah, I got to tell you, I'm trying not to be sexist about this, but there was something about the look and the mannerisms and the pursing of the lips and that tone in her voice that, I mean, if she's having trouble with male voters now, that ain't helping. Thank you, James. Well done. Well said. Robin Akau, aloha, Larry, mahalo. I love your show. Your analysis of the issues at hand solidifies my decision to vote for President Trump. Oh, man, if you're in Hawaii, I hope there's more of you because Hawaii seems so Democrat these days. But you got Tulsi Gabbard too, right, Robin? Mahalo, mahalo very much. And maleke leke maka. I just like saying that. And Susan Cummings, all decked out. The dog is all decked out for Halloween. That's fantastic. Look at that little pumpkin. That dog is not happy to be in a costume. Voted in North Carolina today. Yes, Larry, yesterday, pick my daughter. Hitter's dog was a pit bull. I knew it. That wasn't a poodle. Trump 2024. Way to go, Brett, on Fox News. Absolutely. I love Susan changes her dog pictures every single day. And the only other way, we're not allowed to show you what it is. This person asked for the super chat not to be mentioned, but I will only say, we got your message. We will not use your super chat for Big Macs based on what we can discern from your super chat. We will go and get some foie gras. How about that? Do you like foie gras, Kevin?
I'm indifferent.
You're indifferent to foie gras? How can you be indifferent to foie gras?
It's very rich.
Well, yeah. It's foie gras. We're going to take a quick diversion from our usual roundup of the polls, and we're going to focus on PolyMarket. Do you know what PolyMarket is? Take a look at this. It's actually pretty amazing. PolyMarket is the #1 downloaded app right now. More than the New York Times, CNN. What's that even still there? Obviously, when you look at these apps, a lot of them are focused on news because we're in a news-hungry culture right now. But the very top one is PolyMarket, election forecast, trust the markets, not polls. PolyMarket is kind of a betting site, basically, but it's not like you're betting on sports, and it's not, it's a combination betting market and investment site where you sort of invest in your candidate that you think is going to succeed. And that, some people believe, is a better indication of the strength of a candidate. Because it's one thing to say, yeah, I support this person. It's a whole other thing to actually put your money where your mouth is. And PolyMarket is gaining a lot of steam and a lot of attention. The British betting sites have allowed people to bet on the outcome of elections. That's against the law here in America. But in England, they've been able to do that. And oftentimes, the betting websites and the bookies that take bets on election outcomes are way more accurate than actual polls are. Think about that for a minute as we see Donald Trump was actually asked about PolyMarket the other day. And I think this was this the Barstool? No, this is the Full Send podcast. And here, take a look. He tracks it.
You're up in the polls. I know I've seen you post PolyMarket on Truth Social.
Yeah.
They have you up by 3%. And this is different because it's actual people wagering real money on it. 1.7 billion on you to win. So people say it's a more accurate way to actually assess polling. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
This is what Elon tweeted out. He posted that
see.
you're up 3
That's
points on PolyMarket.
So I looked at it before. We're up 9 points, and I think we had one where we're up 50 points. I'll give you that one.
So he saw that, and so he's obviously been tracking it, and he wanted to see, his margin of victory go up higher, obviously, than 9 points. So let's take a look at PolyMarket today. In fact, right now, in real time, yeah, he's definitely up by more than 9 points now. He's actually up over 20 points as he's sitting at 62.3%, as you can see with Kamala. This is, by the way, a difference of 2.7% from the last check. They also break it down on a per state basis. As you can see, the only toss-up now of the major toss-up states continues to be Nevada. Now, again, this is real-time, real money that people are betting and laying in basically an investment in a future. Like if you buy Trump now, you're buying him with a 62% chance of winning. Now, if you buy Kamala Harris right now, you're buying low, right? And you're thinking maybe she'll have a chance and you're buying low and you'll be able to get a better return. Take a look at how it's tracked all year long. This goes back to May, all right? Now, the gray line in this line graph is Biden. He's gray because he's out, right? He's out of the race. The blue line is Kamala Harris. So you can see at the beginning, Kamala Harris is all the way down at the bottom because she wasn't a candidate. So in June, right around where that debate happened, you see Trump absolutely start to take off. And you've got Trump at 63 and Biden at 21. That's when Kamala Harris started to climb, right? And then by the time you hit July, you see Kamala Harris actually as a candidate. But PolyMarket wasn't buying it at the beginning. Trump is still winning at that point at 63% to Harris is 21%. That's right around this is the convention right here where he got up to 71%. But then things started to shift as Kamala Harris had all of her great publicity, and then she had her convention, and then suddenly Kamala Harris goes in the lead. And back in mid to late August, Kamala Harris was in the lead, 50 to 49 right there, right after the convention. You can see on this line graph that it's sort of bounced back and forth since then with either of them trading the lead, but it's all within 1 or 2 points until just recently. You see that giant sharp climb right there from Trump, and he goes up about 54% to her 46. Now we've got a 9-point lead, right? This is right around when that podcast was recorded. But now look at the last week and a half. Look at October now. It's an absolutely amazing trend here. Now, this is the first election that I know of where PolyMarket has really been a major factor in terms of people looking at it as an indicator as to how the election might go. So I'm not telling you that this is 100% or even 50% valid, but it is another indication to look at. They also have a breakdown on a per state basis. And right now, in every single swing state, Donald Trump is leading, again, like I said, except for Nevada, in some of these states by a healthy margin. This means people are willing to actually put their own money on the line, betting that they think Trump is going to win. Popular vote right now, Kamala Harris is still winning in the popular vote. So you see how this works. So you can bet on the line, or you can bet on the over under. You know, it's like a sports betting. So you can bet that Donald Trump will win the Electoral College, or I should say invest in the idea of Trump winning the Electoral College, but then also invest in the concept that Kamala Harris will still win the popular vote. And, you know, that's how things go here in the United States of America. You can win the popular vote and not win the presidency. There's also other markets like, will there be another debate? Will Kamala Harris win all 6 swing states? Things like that. You can also bet on the House and Senate, which I find interesting. Right now, the presidency going to the Republicans is up at around 63%. The Senate, 80%, which is a pretty safe bet right now, considering what's going on in West Virginia and Wyoming. Those are 2 Democrat states that look like they're locks. The House right now, interestingly, is basically in toss-up zone, but the Democrats have a slight edge in winning the House. You can also say Republicans get a complete sweep, and that's at 43% right now. So still a long shot, but it's more favorable than Democrats getting a sweep. So that's where PolyMarket is right now. And I think it's kind of fascinating. Again, here's a quick look at the Electoral College as of about an hour ago when this screenshot was taken. And of course, the darkness of the colors in the swing states reflect on how solid the bet is, right? The blue wall, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, where Kamala Harris cannot afford to lose one of them, in the pink zone right now for the Republican candidate, Donald Trump. North Carolina, Georgia, and Arizona are a little darker. I don't know if you can tell on your monitor. Those states are right now looking pretty solid for Donald Trump. But again, we're 18 days out. Now, here's another interesting thing about this PolyMarket thing. At Times Square, for the last several months, they've had a real-time digital active billboard, as you can see.
Can you pull that up, Larry?
The live. Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you. At Times Square, they've had this real-time digital billboard right there at Times Square, showing everyone at the crossroads of the world exactly where the real-time live odds are. This was taken about a week ago, I think, showing Donald Trump. See, the numbers change based on the investments, right? And this shows you exactly on that billboard who's winning and who's losing at any given time. As of last night, again, I showed you on the line graph where Donald Trump about 2.5 weeks ago started to pull ahead, like there was a sharp tick up, and then it's just started to grow and grow and grow since then. I think it was really the J.D. Vance debate that may have started this trend, but he's, looking in his rearview mirror now, he's up 20 points, right? And so something very interesting happened to that Times Square billboard. Take a look. This is somebody at Times Square last night. Look, it's changed. This person's looking, or actually that's up at the north side of Times Square. So hold on. The billboard for PolyMarket is down at the other end of Times Square. So hold on. That's Duffy Square. That's where you go to get your discount Broadway ticket for same day. But that right there, all the way down there, see where it says Jelly Roll? That's the same billboard that had been PolyMarket. And now it's not there. Now, this guy's camera work is not great because he's in his car. And I'm afraid to keep this up because Lord knows what happens in Times Square. But now the billboard isn't there. That's fascinating. One more look, by the way, at the state-by-state breakdown from PolyMarket. And let's just continue to say the same thing that I've been saying for a while now, because anything can happen, obviously, in this election. All I'm saying is, where are we? 2.5 weeks away from Election Day, early voting already going on. Compared to 4 years ago and 8 years ago, Donald Trump is stronger than he had been at any time in those elections. Number one. Number two, if you could take your pick right now as to which campaign to be associated with, if you could be on the inside and have all of your future invested in Kamala Harris being president versus Donald Trump being president, you're a lot happier in the Trump camp right now than you are in the Kamala camp. Let me just say, if you're a staffer working on the Kamala Harris campaign, you're working hard, you're a good person, you're trying to earn your keep, but you're spending a little bit more time dusting off your resume right now for your next gig. And you're not dusting off your resume for a job in the White House. Not even close.
Larry, we've got a couple more super chats real quick coming in.
You guys are phenomenal. Thank you so much. Let's see what we got. All right, finally, yeah, thank you. All right, so after our foie gras, we'll have the Big Mac. Thank you. Whale disease is a great name. Thanks for the $5, Vad. We appreciate it. And Katz Russ. Absolutely love watching your show. Have a coffee on me. Thank you. We sure will. That is about the cost of a coffee. We might be able to afford 2 coffees. Kevin, you don't do the bougie coffee, do you? You don't do the Rappa Frappa double latte espresso half calf, do you?
Black hot coffee only.
That's it. That's all we do. That's the kind of guy that you're dealing with here. Black drip coffee. Don't mess it up with anything else. Although sometimes, have you tried honey in your coffee, Kevin? This is a thing.
Yes, I have. Raw honey.
No, you don't like it?
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Yeah, honey. If I'm going to put anything on my, I'm not always in the mood for it. But if I'm going to put anything on my coffee, I'm putting honey in my coffee. That's good stuff. Good for your brain, too. Thank you for the super chats. Everybody, again, we don't ask for them. We don't solicit them. But God, do we appreciate those super chats. And if you can't afford anything, I totally get it. Just give us a like. Give us a like. Give us a share. Give us a like. Give us a share. That is worth its weight in gold. You know that. Thank you. As you know, a big focus over the last several days has been Kamala Harris's struggles with minority voters, Black and Latino voters in particular. And this was the topic of conversation on CNN last night. But this roundtable, unlike many of the conversations that have CNN, actually had 2 very passionate people on either side of the issue. It wasn't a gang up. It wasn't a 8-on-1 or anything like this. I want to watch this with you because this is exactly the kind of absolute blow up we need right now in cable news. We need Trump supporting conservatives to be able to walk into that lion's den and absolutely deliver just like this.
Editor-in-chief of Bloomberg. I want to move on to what Donald Trump has said about an issue near and dear to both of your hearts, the issue of Black Americans and Latino voters. Kamala Harris has been doing interviews on Black media. Trump, though, is overperforming in polling with both groups compared to past Republicans. Here is what he said when he was campaigning in Pennsylvania.
Any African American or Hispanic, and you know how well I'm doing there, that votes for Kamala, you got to have your head examined because they are really screwing you. They are really screwing you.
It is Kamala, for the record, but he is denigrating voters for making a choice that he does not like. Shelley, to you, what does he achieve with this?
Well, how is it? Wait, first of all, how is he denigrating voters?
He's saying that they are being, for lack of a better word, screwed.
Taken advantage of. They're being taken advantage of. They're paying higher pricing. They're working class, the ones that he's talking about, working class, lower middle class. They're paying more for food. They're paying more for gas, and they're being taken advantage of.
But
and
Shelley,
over the course of 30 years, they voted.
He also said that they, that they had to have their head examined. That is not something that is a compliment.
I'm just curious. I'd love to go back in time 4 years ago and find the segment where this host on CNN has a panel discussing Joe Biden telling the audience at the Breakfast Club with Charlamagne the God that if you're Black and you vote for Trump, then you ain't Black. I don't know. Maybe that's not a compliment either. Listen, politicians use rhetoric to make a point, and Trump's just basically pointing out that African Americans and Latinos have been diligently following orders and voting Democrat for decades now. And what's gotten better for those communities? Have the neighborhoods gotten better? Have the streets gotten better or safer? Have the schools gotten better? Have the culture in those towns gotten any better? Are more people getting married and having babies within the confines of a marriage? Or have you got more people having babies out of wedlock or murdering their babies before they're born? Do you have more drug use or do you have less drug use? Do you have more murder or less murder? I mean, that's the bottom. I'm sorry, but if you continue to vote for the same party decade after decade after decade after, Democrats have run Detroit for 60 years. Same with Baltimore, same with DC. Same with Chicago. You keep voting for the same political party who make the same promises to you, and you end up not just in the same place, but worse. Of course you need to have your head examined. And by the way, this CNN host, the fact that she could only rile up emotion and anger and righteous indignation because Trump has pointed out that obvious fact, where's the righteous indignation over the plight of those cities, over the deaths of those children in drive-by shootings or getting caught in the crossfire of gang warfare? That doesn't make news, which this CNN will never report on. But if Jussie Smollett claims that he got beat up at 2 a.m. getting a Subway sandwich because it's MAGA country in Chicago, oh, we're going to have day-long shows about that. And instead, she's more upset about Trump saying that these people need to get their head examined. This is exactly what's wrong with CNN. But what's right about this guy, because he's not taken any of it. Watch.
Obama just told me the same thing. Obama just told me the same thing. I've got black women telling me I'm not really he inferred them. He implied them. He certainly did. He even threatened us with, you're lucky Michelle's not here. I mean, come on. Let's not make things up. Let's be honest here, and let's really be clear what's being said. If you're an African-American man, look, let me boil this election down in the African-American community to a very simple, I'll reference the great Malcolm X. This race is between House African-Americans and field African-Americans. And the field African-Americans are going for Donald Trump. I'm talking about your men who build, your men who put things together, your men who work with their hands, your men who do things, not the men who push paper, or the men who are connected to power and want to continue to be connected to power.
Are you denigrating African-American men who are professionals who work in white-collar jobs? Is that what I'm hearing from you? Or
no?
I'm just trying to understand, is Shelley the House one or the field one? I'm just trying to understand that part. I'm just trying to understand. We have someone who's spitting. I'm just trying to understand the one that's spitting talking points right now. Are you the House Negro or the field Negro that you're referring to? So I just want to make sure your question was about denigrating black people. That literally was your question. You have a Republican fool who is talking right now about. You literally just said that black men. You actually just said this is an election about House or field. This is the nonsense that we are listening to right now by those that are supporting Donald Trump. That is actually what you just there's only clearly you must be in your own talk. I'm not sure what kind of radio show you have that you can't listen to your own thing. So you actually just said for Trump. Again, do you understand? You sound absurd and silly. And so let's actually talk about the substance of your question. The substance of the question was around denigrating. The substance of the question was denigrating black and Latino communities.
Sir, the substance of what I said is very clear.
My name is Michael. My name is Michael. And we thank you that. So the point here, the question that was raised around denigrating black and Latino.
Now, I'm going to let this go on. By the way, the guy on the left who sort of rose the temperature there with the House versus field African-American comment. His name is Shelley Winter. He's a radio talk show host on WSB in Atlanta. And I do love the fact that they're all getting in histrionics here, and they're saying, you're denigrating voters, you're denigrating voters, you're denigrating voters. And of course, he's pointing out that, well, black Trump voters have been denigrated as well. And now the gentleman on the right, in defending Kamala Harris supporters who are African Americans, calls Shelley Winter silly and says, so it's like everybody's denigrating each other. How dare you denigrate me? You're an a-hole. Oh, well, yeah, you shouldn't denigrate me because you're full of shit. It's like, all right. Can we just stop with everyone, clutching their pearls over denigrating each other and get down to the real nuts and bolts of this? But so again, I'm not black, so far be it for me to jump into this fray here. But the field versus house situation here is definitely fighting words in the African-American community, I believe. And what it suggests is those who are in the house are the ones who are doing the master's bidding, and they're they live a more privileged life, right? They have a cushier job, and they've sold out so that they can have all of the spoils of living in the house, but you're still a slave. Whereas when you're working in the field, you're actually doing the hard work, and you're still a slave too, but you're not getting any of the benefits. And that's what Shelley Winter is sort of pointing out here, or saying, based on those African Americans who are voting for Trump versus voting for Kamala Harris. And well, I'll let this continue now, but you can see why this is a volatile conversation. But what I love about this, and what I love about what Shelley Winter brought up, I love passion and I love fire no matter what when it's a political discussion. That's our lifeblood here. But what I love is that Shelley Winter doesn't back down in any way whatsoever. He came with it, he brought it, and he said, yeah, this is what I believe, and this is how I see it. And oh, by the way, what have we got to show for doing what you guys have all been telling us to do from the beginning? And don't tell me about getting lectured to because I'm supposed to vote a certain way, because Joe Biden did it 4 years ago, saying that I wasn't authentically black if I don't vote for him. And we just had Barack Obama last week lecturing black voters, black men, because they're not coming out to his liking for Kamala. And that's good. Good. Throw it right back at them.
Communities.
All right, my brother, let me answer the question. Are you going to let me answer the question?
The concerning part.
Are you going to let me answer the question?
Shelley, you made the point saying that you made the point saying that you believe that
the point I'm making, ma'am, Sarah, the point I'm making is this: the men who get up every day and make things happen with their hands, they build things, they're plumbers, they're electricians, they're working for Amazon. These men who are coaching 7 and under football, not because their son or daughter plays, but because they want to keep brothers off the streets and they're volunteering their time. These men are going for Trump. These men, and I used an analogy made famous by the great Malcolm X. So if you're saying that I'm denigrating anybody, then you must assume that he was denigrating somebody. So don't even throw that word out there again, my brother.
So Michael,
the fact of the matter is that's what you're seeing in the black community.
Shelley,
so I'm not denigrating anybody.
We have heard the filibuster now. So the point yesterday,
I answered your question.
When Vice President Harris was in Detroit with Charlemagne the God, we're talking about Detroit versus everybody. So the reference that was just made, he's essentially communicating that the people in Detroit and Milwaukee and Philly that are doing work, manufacturing jobs, putting in for their communities, are going to vote for Donald Trump, a man who has no policy, no support, who called for the death penalty on black men and has repeatedly been against us. So let's be abundantly clear. You have a choice. You can follow the rhetoric of someone who is literally calling you a house or field black man, or you can follow the black woman who was a DA, an AG, a United States Senator, a vice president, an HBCU alum, a sorority sister who is actually helping black people. This is the decision you have in 20 days to follow people like Shelley, who is saying this rhetoric. We've heard his filibuster.
How she help black people?
We could listen to Shelley or to Clarence Thomas.
Mr. Winter, you had your point. I'm just trying to let both of you.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. So, the reality is this: you have a scenario right now where you have on one side a black woman who is saying, how do we help our communities? To your earlier question, Sarah, around how can you do both? On one side, you have Vice President Harris, who is articulating how we can help domestically and abroad. Donald Trump sent COVID tests to help Putin. So while your black family's house or field, referring to what Shelley is talking about,
misinformation, sir.
We're dying.
That's misinformation.
were
That's
dying
That's
because of
misinformation.
Donald Trump's policies.
That's misinformation.
You know, it's
That's
amazing.
misinformation.
We will focus here.
We are going to leave this here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Michael Blake, Shelley Winter, thank
But
you
I'm
both
saying,
for
why
joining
don't you
us
correct the
at this point.
misinformation?
Have a good day
for joining us.
for your radio show.
Like I said, we love fire and we love passion and we love when people go at it. And I think Shelley Winter actually, well, let's just say he got their attention. By the way, one other update here, because we talked about this yesterday, that the agenda to help African Americans, as the gentleman on the right there, he's actually the vice chair of the DNC, said, well, we have a choice here. And one of these people has an agenda to help Black men. And we talked about this yesterday. The agenda to help Black men was to set up 1 million forgivable loans just for African Americans. Forgivable loans, that's free money. And also, you can start a business selling pot, and you can use pot and not go to jail, because we're going to legalize it across the board in this country. So, hey, Black people, I know what you want. I want you want to be able to sell drugs and get high. And we're going to give you free money to do it. Remember that? Remember that? Well, there's an update to that. Apparently, the Wall Street Journal was asking people in the Kamala Harris campaign, how are you going to do all of these programs specifically just for Black men? Because that's literally against federal law. It's discrimination. And 48 hours after launching all of these programs specifically for Black men, with all the headlines and all the press releases and all the media appearances, and this guy, as you just saw, the vice chair of the DNC, saying she's got all these programs specifically to help Black people and Black men. Well, the Kamala Harris campaign has conceded that the agenda for Black men is really open to everyone, not just Black men. Yeah, Vice President Harris's opportunity agenda for Black men aims to shore up support from a pillar of the Democrat base, with a key section promising 1 million loans that are fully forgivable to Black entrepreneurs. But now, well, they've conceded that you can get one of those if you're white, too. And I'm sure that all the Black men that she's trying to appeal to are really going to be grateful to know that she lied just to pander to them and get headlines and use them to get publicity. And there's actually nothing in it for them at all. Good to know. That's it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Do we get any other super chats in there that I need to stop for, big guy?
Nope, that's a wrap.
You jumping in with super chats. That is a wrap. Thank you guys so much. It was a great one. We appreciate it. We'll be back. No roundtable tomorrow, so y'all have tomorrow off. But watch for our clips and our shorts and our videos so you can share them across the board. And we'll see you soon. I'll be from a brand new location on Monday. I'm going out in the field. In fact, I'm going to be doing this show from the middle of one of the most important swing states, border ground states. What are we calling them? The battleground states. I'm going deep into Kamala Harris's blue wall. And this show will be originating from one of those very important battleground blue wall swing states that both candidates are vying for. And I'll be giving you a firsthand report from there. So I will see you there starting Monday. And for the next full week, I'll be right there. Which state am I going to? Which state? I don't know. We'll see. My name's Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.